There are some roads so isolated, so rarely traveled, that you have to wonder what brings a predator out there in the first place. Muskrat Creek Road, Shoshoni, Wyoming, is one of those roads. It's the kind of place you only end up if you're looking for something, or if you're trying to hide something. In March of 1983, a Fremont County worker was clearing an ice dam off that remote oil-filled cut road when they made a discovery no one should ever have to see. A young woman, nude, violated, dumped like garbage, partially buried under a collapsed bank. That woman was Janelle Johnson. Janelle had just turned 23. Born in Montana, she'd moved to Wyoming to build something. She had ambition. She had a job at the bowling alley in Riverton. She had dreams of modeling and had traveled to Denver for a meeting with Vannoy Talent Center. She was going somewhere, but on the way home, somewhere between Denver and Riverton, she vanished. She was last seen at a truck stop in Sinclair around 9 p.m. on February the 17th. By March 1st, she was dead. Beaten, sexually assaulted in the most violent, dehumanizing way imaginable, both by her killer and by an instrument they brought with them. Bite marks scarred her shoulder. She had no clothes, no jewelry, no dignity left, thanks to a predator with no conscience. And let's be clear, whoever did this was prepared. This wasn't a crime of passion. This was a crime of opportunity, control, cruelty. This case isn't just cold. It's practically buried, just like Janelle was. And frankly, that is unacceptable. It's been over 40 years. 40 years since someone drove that remote stretch of road, got out of their vehicle, and left behind a young woman who had her whole life ahead of her. And we're supposed to move on? Not on this show, and not today. If you know anything about what happened to Janelle Johnson, contact the National Organization of Parents of Murdered Children at 513-721-5683 or by email at natlpomc@pomc.org. Reference her case when you do, because someone knows, and until they speak up, we'll keep dragging these cases into the light, one reckoning at a time. Angela, how's it going tonight?
It's going. How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
I have no complaints.
None?
No, none.
Can't even come up with any?
I mean, I can always complain about the asshats and shitheads running around in the world.
This is true.
People like we talk about on all of our shows, yeah, I can always bitch about them. But as far as my life, no, I got no complaints.
Well, that's good to hear.
So, some cases feel personal. And not because we knew the victim, but because we know the terrain, the silence, the space, and how easy it is to disappear between two small towns with nothing but sky and sagebrush in between.
Janelle Johnson had just turned 23. She was ambitious, creative. She moved from Montana to Wyoming, worked hard, dreamed big, and one day in 1983, she was headed to Denver to chase one of those dreams for a modeling interview, but she never made it back to Riverton.
A short while later, her body was found, nude, dumped near Muskrat Creek Road outside of Shoshoni. She'd been sexually assaulted, beaten, bitten, her clothes, her jewelry, gone.
And that road, that wasn't just some side route. It was remote, industrial, used by oil-filled crews and county trucks. Whoever left her there knew it would be a while before anyone came looking.
This is Dark Dialogue Rocky Mountain Reckoning, the show where we return to the crimes rooted deep in the dirt and the snow of the American West, the ones that never left the hearts of the people who lived through them.
We investigate the stories buried under snowfall, fairy dust, and decades of unanswered questions. The ones whispered through cattle fences, past broken barbed wire, and across wind-lashed highways.
Disappearance isn't always about getting lost. Sometimes someone's waiting.
I'm Angela.
And I'm John.
In this episode, we follow Janelle's final journey, from a hopeful trip to Denver to the horror found at the end of a forgotten road.
This is Model Dreams Monster Road. What happened to Janelle Johnson?
And this is Dark Dialogue, Rocky Mountain Reckoning.
Angela, I think that you have some location information for a couple of the places that we're visiting tonight, don't you?
I do. And I have been to both of these places far too many times.
Me too.
So here we go. Our first stop is Riverton, Wyoming. Often called the Rendezvous City, has rich history rooted in its strategic location and diverse cultural influences. Situated in Fremont County at the confluence of the Big and Little Wind Rivers, Riverton was a natural gathering place long before its founding in 1904. Riverton was initially named Wadsworth after Indian agent H.G. Wadsworth, but was renamed Riverton due to its location near the conjunction of four rivers: the Big Wind, Little Wind, Popoja, and and Bighorn Rivers.
When I was little, I always called the Popoaggie.
Everybody,
Always.
little Popoaggie, but it's Popoja. It was officially incorporated in 1906 on land surrendered from the Wind River Indian Reservation following a federal land office establishment. In 1830 and 1838, mountain men rendezvous brought legendary figures like Jim Bridger, Kit Carson, and Jedediah Smith to trade with Native Americans and missionaries. The 1838 rendezvous site, still on its original ground, is celebrated annually with reenactments. And it is finally time for the census comparison in this episode. Same as with our last episodes, John has asked me to note the census records around the time of the occurrence we are reporting. So the earliest record I found was for 1910, with a reported 483 residents. In 1980, the time frame pertinent to our story, Riverton had grown to 9,562 people, with 10,682 Rivertonians reported during the 2020 census. You know, I have people in my office asking what the demonym for everything is now.
I'll never remember that word. I'm going to always ask you, what is that word?
Yeah. Well, they ask me what the word is. Then they ask me what the demonym is for places. So for my notable people related to this town, I thought it fitting to first mention John Bennett Harrington, who was the first enrolled member of a Native American tribe to fly to space.
Wow.
Thought that was pretty cool.
Me too. I didn't know that.
Mr. Darrell Winnefield, better known to most of us as the Marlboro Man, was from here, as well as Leslie Lynch King Sr., father to President Gerald Ford.
I didn't know
from
any
Riverton, Wyoming.
That's pretty cool.
Also, asshat alert, Andrew John Yellow Bear Jr., born September 5th, 1974, was the defendant in one of Wyoming's most notorious capital murder trials. He was convicted in April 2006 in Thermopolis, Wyoming, of premeditated first-degree murder in the death of his 22-month-old daughter, Marcella Hope Yellow Bear. He was subsequently sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Let's take a moment to digest that from Marcella.
She deserves a moment of silence, poor little thing.
So also, who in Wyoming thinks of Riverton without thinking of the Wind River Casino?
I never think.
You never think of it?
No.
Their tagline is where the winners play. And every time I drive through with my brother, he wants to know where the losers play.
I mean, all my time in Riverton predated the casino. So I never think of the casino.
We usually go once a year.
Really?
Yeah.
I have set foot in the place once in my life, and I was using the bathroom.
Well, in case you want to find it again, let me tell you about it. Located approximately 2 miles south of Riverton, the Wind River Casino is proudly owned by the Northern Arapaho tribe. Wind River Hotel and Casino offers thrilling entertainment, gaming, and dining experiences. Explore over 700 state-of-the-art gaming machines from slots and video reels to Keno and video poker, or dive into action-packed table games. Take the excitement further with our sports book and the ultimate sports betting experience. Wind River Hotel and Casino, Vegas-style gaming in the heart of Wyoming. And I took that directly from their website, which is why it sounded
like it was from their website?
From their website, yes. So then from Riverton, which is odd because in our neck of the woods, to get to Riverton, you go through Shoshoni. So we're going from Riverton back to Shoshoni. So I don't know if my co-host agrees here, but to most folks in our area, Shoshoni, Wyoming is just a fork in the road on the way to either Casper or Riverton.
Ever since they closed the malt shop, it is. Back when they had the malt shop, it was more than that.
It's just a fork in the road. It's a gas station and a fork in the road to me.
They had the best malts in the history of the world.
I've been through there so many times, and I have never, to my recollection, I had never had
gone now, but they were amazing.
I'm sorry.
Me too.
I know people like the ice cream in Farson too, but I've also known far too many people to become ill, so I will not be partaking in that.
I don't think there's anything to be ill about, but I never really understood it either because it's just like Wilcoxon's or...
Yeah, it's the same thing you can get in Albertsons if you just drive up there.
Yep.
So we took the right turn and went to Riverton earlier, but now I'll feed you a little information about this little Wyoming town, and it is very little information.
Well, it's a very little town.
Yeah, if we can still call it a town.
I think it is.
I think it is too.
Yeah.
It was founded in 1904 by the Pioneer Townsite Company and was named for the Shoshone Indian tribe. The town was platted as a railroad stop strategically located at the intersection of trade routes, now U.S. Routes 20 and 26, known as the Yellowstone Highway. By 1905, Shoshone became a tent city with a population of about 2,000. Driven by the opening of Wind River Reservation lands, mineral exploration at nearby Copper Mountain, and irrigation projects. Early businesses, including the Elkhorn Hotel built in 1905, operated out of tents due to a lack of building materials. In 1907 and 1908, fires destroyed much of the town's wooden structures, leading to reconstruction with brick and stone buildings. This period saw Shoshone boast 23 saloons, 2 banks, a mercantile, a lumberyard, and other businesses, making it a bustling frontier hub.
So I'm wondering, I know you're about to tell us, but is this going to be like the first town that has gone down in population over the years?
Well, yes. The town census records for 1910 boasted 604 people, whereas about 1983, when this story takes place, there was about 879 residents reported.
That was booming in the 80s.
Yeah. It has since taken a population hit to a reported 471 people in the 2020 census. Maybe 5 years ago, it's probably a little different now, but it might be less even still.
Yeah, there's not very many people that live there, but I think that's the first town we've covered that's gone down, isn't it?
Some of them have gone down, but not as drastically as that.
Oh, that was cut like in half.
In half, yeah.
Oh.
Shoshone is the birthplace of Charles Henry King, who is the grandfather of President Gerald Ford. So his grandfather was born in Shoshone. His father was born in Riverton. As well as actress Isabel Jewell, known for her roles in Gone with the Wind and Lost Horizon.
Wow, super interesting.
And those are the things that I have for you, and I taught you some things, so I feel pretty good about myself.
And what is unique about President Gerald Ford?
Why would you ask?
Because you decided to get smart with me?
Well, I've gotten smart with you before. That's never happened.
President Gerald Ford is the only president in our history that was never elected.
Do tell.
So Gerald Ford took over after Nixon resigned. So he was Nixon's vice president. And so he became president just because Nixon resigned and he didn't run for re-election. So he was never elected.
So there you go.
There you have it.
All right. And I shall shut my trap for a while.
She moves behind the counter with an easy rhythm, someone who's done this before. Tucking a strand of hair behind her ear as she grabs a pair of number 7s and slides them across to the guy in the denim jacket. A smile, quick, confident. A pencil scribbles across the back of a napkin. Mileage, bus fare, checklists. Denver's only a few days away now. The modeling interview at Vannoy Talent Center has her buzzing. She's got her outfit picked, her directions printed from the gas station. A roommate back in Riverton already promised to hold the fort till she gets back. It's all coming together. She grabs her rag, wipes down the plastic scoring table near lane 5, then glances at the clock. Just past 9. She's thinking about her double shift tomorrow. Valley View Lanes in the morning, then right back here in the evening. It's not glamorous, but it's just temporary because she's got plans. There's a rhythm to this place. Shoes squeaking, pins falling, the hiss of the ball return, and in the middle of it all, Janelle, working, smiling, dreaming. So Janelle Johnson was born February 16th, 1960 in Glasgow, Montana. And she's the third oldest sister in a large blended family with 2 younger sisters, 3 brothers, 4 stepbrothers, and 1 stepsister. So I couldn't find any specific names or,
That's a lot going on.
That's a lot going. Couldn't find really a lot about the family dynamics or any really about her childhood or anything like that. But she was raised in Glasgow, which is a small rural community. Couldn't find much about her education or childhood activities, really anything about her childhood at all. But she was noted as being ambitious, and she was pursuing a modeling career, which led her to relocate from Montana to Riverton. And I don't know. I couldn't figure out.
In case you didn't notice, I apparently had a look on my face.
Yeah, I couldn't figure that out.
It's like to Riverton, Vermont? Huh.
And I'm sure it was to get closer to Denver, but why she didn't go to Denver?
Or Casper?
I don't know. Riverton is not
the place you think.
No. But we do know that she moved either like late 81 or early 82 and set up shop in Riverton, Wyoming, which is, for those that don't know, it's about 500 miles from Denver. So it's not like it's a suburb. I mean, it's a hell of a long ways. And Riverton kind of sits in the middle of Wyoming and not really on a major thoroughfare to Denver. Like you said, Casper would make sense. Cheyenne would make a ton of sense. Riverton, I don't know, but maybe she had family there. Maybe she had a friend because she did have a roommate in Riverton, and Riverton has Central Wyoming College.
Maybe she wanted to go where the winners play.
There was no casino in Riverton in 1980. Oh my goodness. So I don't really know why Riverton, but anyway, she lived there. She ended up there. She took a job at Valley View Bowling Alley, which I think was probably the only bowling alley in Riverton. And
probably still is.
They closed.
Oh, they closed? So there isn't one at all in Riverton?
I don't know if there is or not, but this Valley View.
Not that I don't know why I'm so concerned. Like Riverton doesn't have a bowling alley?
Yeah, I don't know.
all was lost.
They very well might. Riverton's a pretty good sized place. I think
It really
it's bigger
is.
than Cody.
It's so much bigger than you expect when you're coming upon it.
It is. It's rough.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan.
I mean, to my Wyoming brothers and sisters that live in Riverton, I'm sorry, but I've never been a fan of Riverton, and it's a rough damn place. It really is.
It really is.
But we do know that Janelle was working at the bowling alley, and she was living with a roommate in Riverton, and she frequently hitchhiked. It was, first of all, we're talking early 80s, so it was very common back then. And then
it's sketch, but not as
well. It's always been sketchy, but back then it was normal. It really wasn't. I mean, it was very normal. Even in my lifetime, which I don't really remember the early 80s. I was pretty young to remember that. But, through the late 80s and early 90s, I remember hitchhikers all over the freaking place.
Me too.
It was very, very common. So it doesn't surprise me at all. And we've talked about that with our earlier episodes on Rocky Mountain Reckoning, through the 70s and stuff, all of the hitchhiking that was going on. It was just super common.
Yeah.
And now you really wouldn't think of moving to a place like Riverton if you didn't have a car. If you're moving to the city where there's public transportation available, a lot of people do that. They don't have cars. But in an area like Riverton, you just wouldn't move there unless you had a car. But early 80s was a different time altogether.
Well, it was a better-ish.
The 80s was a better time.
Well, we didn't have the technology, which we do kind of depend on now.
I saw a meme on Facebook the other day that was Doc Brown saying to Marty, we need to get back to the 80s and stay there.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yes.
Yep, I will be jumping in the trunk of the DeLorean and coming with you. So, but we do know, like I said, that she was born and raised in Glasgow, which is it's a small town in Montana. And then she decided that she wanted to pursue modeling. And Janelle was a beautiful woman. She really was. So I think she would have been successful in modeling. She had that look that would have been sought after in the early 80s
Need to look
for a model. And she had actually completed modeling school. And she actually went to the same modeling school that my sister went through, which I think was
interesting.
Barbizal, I'm pretty sure was the name of it. Barbizal modeling. And they, teach them, I don't know, all the modeling crap. I didn't take the classes. I don't know what they teach them, but I'm assuming like how you walk, how you stand, how you, look like a model.
Grace, how you carry yourself.
All that different stuff. Yeah. And so from what I understand, after she finished her like little modeling school or whatever, she made a connection with an outfit that was in Denver, and looking into it, it looks like it was, it was started by one guy, but it seems like it was pretty large modeling talent agency, whatever it was. Through those times, it's gone now as well, but that was named Vannoy Talent Agency. And she had got an interview set up with them. And so she was going to head down to Denver for that interview. And so, her modeling career was in the very early stages. I couldn't find any documented like contracts or any completed jobs. I don't think that she had actually worked as a model yet. She was just getting started. And so this would have been a big break for her to have this talent agency book a interview with her. So I'm sure that she was freaking over the moon about this. The modeling industry in general in the early 80s was shifting from the 1970s glamour to more diverse commercial work with a high demand for print ads, catalogs, magazines. I mean, if you grew up during that period of time, I think it really was the heyday of modeling through the 80s because, they had models on everything, and everything we did was print back then. You got magazines and, billboards. And so it was really the heyday for modeling. And institutions like Barbizon, the one that I mentioned, and there was another one called John Casablanca's, which offered training in runway techniques, posing, portfolio development, and it would cost back then roughly $500 to $2,000 to do this program. So now in today's money, that would run between $1,500 and $6,000. But it offered rural people an opportunity to get into modeling. And as funny as it is, it was really a ticket out for a lot of both young men and women. You know, there are a lot of who became very successful models and even actors and actresses that moved out of the modeling industry into the acting industry in the 1980s that came from little podunk freaking nowhere towns, you know? So, you know, there was a lot of that back in that period of time where these people would come from these little podunk towns and then find success through modeling, you know?
Yeah.
And so, and you've talked about that in a lot of your location descriptions and stuff where these super famous people come out of nowhere.
Place.
And I'm not entirely...
nobody knows.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure who the woman was that you said was in like Gone with the Wind.
Yeah. But Gone with the Wind was big. So, yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
Why was it so big?
I don't know.
It was the first movie made in color.
Was it?
Yeah. Yep. Made it 1936.
I feel like this is trivia night that Angela is failing.
Well, my brain is full of a bunch of useless
Dark dialogue trivia
so
night.
Fill your brain with more useful shit than that.
The trivia filing cabinet has been jammed and I can't get it open and haven't been able to get it open for a while.
Is that the problem?
That's the problem. Send WD-40 and a crowbar.
So, you know, when my sister went through the Barbizon program, they actually would meet in Casper and do it at a motel in Casper. But with Janelle, it was Denver. And even for my sister, which would have been early 90s, you know, she had to go to Denver for like the final whatever deal. Denver, those major metropolitan areas were really the epicenter for the modeling industry. So it's not at all surprising that in order for her to be able to book an interview with a talent agency, she was going to have to travel to a place like Denver in order to get in with somebody like that. Her interview was scheduled with Vannoy Talent Center on February 16th or 17th of 1983. And so she began planning her trip, and her 23rd birthday would have been February the 16th. And then she decided that she was going to hitchhike to Denver and then hitchhike home. And like we talked about, that was super common back then. So, you know, she took off and hitchhiked down there. She called her roommate and let her know that she made it safely and everything went well. So her interview then was on February the 17th. And that seemed to go really well too. She left Denver around 5:30 p.m. and headed back to Riverton, again, hitchhiking. And she was last seen, and this one is confusing to me, and it might just be because, well, maybe for a couple of reasons. No, actually, it does make sense. I'm just trying to think in my brain, if I was driving from Denver to Riverton, would I be going through Sinclair? But actually, when I stop and think about it, you'd probably go through Muddy Gap and up that way, which would take you through Sinclair instead of up through Casper and around. It would have been a faster way to go. So it does make sense when you stop and think about it. We're used to traveling to Casper and then turning to Shoshoni and coming up north to where we're at. So it would have, I guess, made sense to go through Sinclair if they were going the Muddy Gap route. And so she was last seen at that truck stop in Sinclair. And I don't know what the hell it is about Sinclair, freaking Podunk, Wyoming, with a population of nothing.
Stop.
Where it continues to pop up in these cases. But if you remember right, that's where two of the bodies were found after the Rollins rodeo murders was out around Sinclair. It's just weird, you know,
because it's tiny, it's nothing, and it's a truck stop.
And it's on I-80, which is the shittiest interstate in this country, if you ask my opinion. I hate interstate. Obviously when they were looking into her life and everything, there was no documented personal conflicts with anybody in Riverton or anything, nothing in her family. Hitchhiking was really her primary vulnerability. And, obviously that's going to reflect her financial limitations and a different era for sure, like we alluded to before. But having a car in 1980 wasn't as big of a thing as it is now. And it wasn't as common, especially coming from a huge family like she did with all of those kids. It probably wasn't at all uncommon for a large family for kids not to get their own car at 16.
You drive your siblings around. I do have one question though.
Shoot.
What's the worst interstate in Wyoming?
80. 100%. I freaking hate. It's nothing. It's not the worst interstate in Wyoming. It's the worst interstate in this entire country. I hate driving.
I was just going to try to see if something was going to be thrown my general direction.
Oh, I'm waiting for it. For when you least expect.
Continue.
Yeah, 80 is the highway that all the truckers take. The vast majority of the truck traffic across this country is on 80. So you get behind these freaking truckers. Oh, God, I hate driving across 80. And I've done it a lot, but it's my least favorite for sure. But, anyway, coming from a big family like that, it just wasn't realistic probably that the parents were going to be able to afford to buy each one of their kids their own car. And it's something that we do now without ever even thinking about it. But in the 80s, it really wasn't done that much. I like growing up in my family, like my older sisters, they had one car that they shared between the two of them. Each one of them didn't have their own car, which is, similar to what we're talking about here. Maybe they had the one car that all the different siblings that were of driving age could drive. But when she decided to leave home and head off to chase her dreams, she did it
can't
without
take a car. Yeah.
Right. So whatever the reason, we know that she didn't have one. And so she was hitchhiking, which again was just way more acceptable in 1980. Now, if my daughter was like, I'm going to move and hitchhike, I'd be like, oh, like hell you are.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit how old you are. No, you're not. I will buy you a car. This is not happening. Yeah. But it was a different world back then, so.
I do bet the parents didn't necessarily want her hitchhiking, but couldn't really stop her.
I would imagine so, and I've been there. Once you move out and you're on your own, you do your own shit. I couldn't find anything where she even told her parents, and she very well may not have, because that would be a very common thing for somebody in their late teens, early 20s to do. I'm going to do this. Mom and dad are going to flip their shit. So I'm not going to tell them until I'm back. And then I'm going to tell them I got the modeling job, and they're going to say, how'd you get to Denver? And I'm going to say hitchhiked. And then they're going to yell at me, but it's going to be, I'd rather ask forgiveness or beg for forgiveness than ask for permission type of thing. I don't know that, but I kind of suspect there might have been a little bit of that going on. So, but what we do know is by 9 p.m. that night, she was never seen again. She was seen at the Sinclair truck stop and then disappeared. So she steps onto the cracked sidewalk outside Union Station. February, cold, biting at her coat sleeves. But her stride doesn't break. She's got a paper tucked in her purse with the address of Vannoy Talent Center, and she's going to find it. She didn't come all this way from Riverton just to second guess herself. Inside the agency's small waiting area, it smells faintly like cheap perfume and coffee gone lukewarm. Headshots line the wall. Models with teased hair and perfect teeth. She straightens her shoulders, checks her reflection in the glass frame, smooths the front of her blouse. She's ready. The interview is quick but promising. She chats, she smiles, she listens closely. They tell her that they'll be in touch. Her eyes light up. It's not a guarantee, but it's a crack in the door, and that is all she needs. Just after 9 p.m. at the truck stop in Sinclair, Wyoming, she's made her way most of the journey back towards Riverton, thumbing rides along the highway like she's done before, confident, capable, tired, focused. She makes a call back to Valley, checks in, says she's headed home. She's still got a few dozen miles to go, but she's closer than she was yesterday. She adjusts her coat, tightens the strap on her purse, and waits for her next ride. We do know that 5 days after her sighting at the Sinclair truck stop, her friends are freaking out. Obviously, the family's freaking out. Her roommates have let the family know that, she never made it home. Family's freaking out. Friends are freaking out. And they finally file a missing persons report with the Riverton Police Department. And the details from that report were that she was described as a 23-year-old woman who was last seen at the Sinclair truck stop, traveling from Denver to Riverton. She was likely wearing casual clothing that was suitable for that kind of travel, probably jeans and a shirt, but nothing specific was documented because nobody saw her before. Her friends didn't see her that morning. So
just going by her regular.
What she, her roommate may have known the clothes that she took and could have guessed maybe what she would have been wearing, but we don't know for sure what she was wearing. But her roommate did note the call from Denver saying that she had made it on time, and then nothing after February 17th. So Riverton police began inquiries focusing on her last known location in Sinclair, but no immediate leads emerged. Truck stops with transient populations, especially in the early 80s, this is before we had CCTV cameras all over the freaking place. They were nowhere, especially not going to be at a truck stop in Sinclair, Wyoming, of all places.
Yeah.
And the investigation was limited, like all the cases we've talked about in this series so far, by the forensic capabilities of that day in these rural areas. And so it was minimal. There wasn't a whole lot that they could do. She was just gone. And then on March 1st, 1983, her body was found on Muskrat Creek Road near Shoshoni, which you kind of talked about.
Right.
Shoshoni's roughly 30 miles from Riverton. And her body was discovered by county workers who were removing an ice block from a storm drain, which had eroded the shallow grave. So she had been buried. And then the water rushing past her had kind of uncovered her. And that's how they were able to find her.
Like in the storm drain, or just
like in the ditch kind of beside it. I don't know for sure, but kind of what I think happened is she was buried near it, and then the ice backed up, which caused the water to flow around and wash out an area a little bit farther away from the creek.
Okay.
And then when they were there trying to get that ice block moved out of there, that's when they discovered her body. And she had been raped and murdered. The autopsy confirmed sexual assault and strangulation as the cause of death. And there were bite marks that were found on one shoulder, and an impression was taken for maybe potential suspect comparison.
Yeah.
There were also seminal fluids recovered from her body. And obviously that was believed to have been from the perpetrator. But as sad as it is, it was stored in a refrigerator that either the refrigerator failed or got unplugged or whatever happened, and we lost the evidence. So we had DNA evidence in this case, and it's gone, which is so beyond frustrating. And I don't know enough about it to say whether it was caused by dipshittery or if it was just shitty.
Right.
Because
Ugh.
If like a refrigerator fails, it's really nobody's fault. like we've talked about in so many of these cases, this was at a time, 1983, where DNA was, to say it was in its infancy is being generous. I mean, it was barely
zygote-y.
Yeah. And, like small departments like Riverton, Wyoming, for instance, it wouldn't have even been on their radar in 1983. I mean, I know I didn't hear about it until late 80s or early 90s before we really started hearing about DNA. And yeah, we know now when we look back through the history that it was in the development stages back then. But as far as like law enforcement having a freaking clue what it was and how they could use it. So the fact that they collected the semen sample and kept it under refrigeration is pretty freaking heads up police work, in my opinion, in 1883. The fact that it was lost sucks ass for sure. But I don't think I can blame them for that. It just seems like it was shitty luck. The scary part about this is out there, and I don't know. I know exactly where Muskrat Creek Road is because I looked it up on Google Maps, but I've never been there. But that area is just sagebrush plains.
Nothingness.
A lot of nothingness. And if it wouldn't have been for that ice blocking that up, she probably never would have found. Because this is not a high traffic area and she was buried.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the odds of anybody ever finding that body are minuscule. And the fact that it was found so shortly after she was murdered is pretty freaking remarkable, really. So the Riverton police coordinated with the Fremont County Sheriff's Office, and they investigated the Sinclair truck stop lead. They investigated the Muskrat Creek Road crime scene. They did everything they could to try to find witnesses or physical evidence, but there really wasn't much. And no suspects were identified, no specific vehicles, no individuals that they were looking for. I mean, nobody witnessed anything about this.
Mm-hmm.
So you have no idea who you're looking for. And then the really unfortunate thing is losing that seminal fluid, because my suspicions is there's a very high likelihood that it would have led to a particular shithead that we know well in this area.
Yeah.
But without that, we don't know. And in 1983, bite mark impressions seemed like really good science.
Yeah.
But we have learned over the years that it's extraordinarily unreliable, and it's kind of almost been discounted as just junk science at this point.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I mean, if there's like a really unusual bite
like
mark,
there's a cap or a...
not even a cap, like they're like snaggle teeth, like their teeth are a half an inch separation between the other ones or something, then, they can kind of say. But in 1983 and before 1983, they would sit on a witness stand and say, this bite impression came from this person. They can't say that anymore.
Okay.
They can just say it's similar. That would be the testimony if it was in court today. They would say this bite mark is similar to the bite impressions from this suspect. But we cannot say conclusively that it came from this person. And when you think about it, it is logical. I mean, when you bite somebody hard enough to leave an impression on them, a significant amount of bruising and stuff occurs at the same time. And that's going to disfigure some of the identifying marks in the bite mark impression.
Yeah.
So it's really not relied upon nearly as heavily as it was in 1983. So, but Janelle's murder has been linked historically with the Great Basin murders that we've been talking about this entire season. All of the victims that we've already covered, Janelle has historically been included in that list. And like I said from the very beginning, it's very difficult because there's so many different lists out there. So some of them are on some of them are on others. I've included a bunch that aren't on any of the rest of them. But Janelle has historically been pretty much included in all of the. She is considered a Great Basin serial killer victim. And we only say that because that's kind of the title. We know it was not just one, but
yeah.
And I mean, you kind of talked about this already, but just to kind of reiterate, we talked about Riverton, which is a relatively small town in Wyoming. I mean, for Wyoming, it's one of our larger towns, but in comparison to other places, it's tiny. It's a tiny little town.
What's that population?
It was like 9,000 and something.
Then we're just a little bit higher because we're 10,028 past that sign every day.
Yeah. And, I don't know. I mean, I've always considered Riverton to be about the same size as us. But when you're comparing it to other places, it's relatively small. So you have a pretty small police force. Fremont County Sheriff's Office is pretty much in the same boat as all of these rural sheriff's offices that we talk about. They have a huge area to cover and not a lot of officers to do that. And then with the timing, you're just limited because it's 1983 and there's just not a whole hell of a lot that can be done. Did you have something you were going to add on population?
Well, no, I was looking up the actual physical size comparison. Okay, they are. The population comparison as of the 2025 estimates, Riverton is 11,085 with 10.34 square miles of land area. Cody is 10,370, so we've gone up even still, with 10.24 square miles of land area.
Okay. So they're just a tiny bit bigger.
Just a tiny bit.
But then you add to that.
Does not feel that way, though.
It always has to me. I've always thought Riverton was bigger. But, and then, not
maybe
included.
It's so congested and worse.
Maybe. Not included in that, though, too, is the college population, which isn't included in the population totals, but adds significant population to an area. Yeah. Even though Central Wyoming College is a relatively small college, it still has, it's added quite a few people to but irregardless, it's a relatively small town, but then you're talking about the crime scene being in Shoshoni, Wyoming, which
population 3 and a cow.
Well, I mean, the funny thing of it is Shoshoni parks an empty cop car on the road so people slow down.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not saying they don't have a cop there because they do have, but I think it's one, and the poor guy can't work 24/7. So they park that cop car on the road so that people slow down.
Just to make you think.
And then obviously Wyoming Highway Patrol patrols it, but it's a tiny force. It was bigger. It was about twice the size in 1980. So maybe they had 2 cops. I don't know, but it's a tiny. You have Riverton that's tiny. You have Wyoming, essentially the entire state population-wise is tiny. And then you have this crime occurring in a very, very tiny little town. So it makes investigation a lot more difficult, obviously. It's early morning on a remote oil-filled road outside of Shoshoni. The kind of stretch that doesn't see much traffic. Just county trucks and rig crews punching time cards into the frozen ground. 2 county workers stop their plow beside a ridge compacted snow, blocking part of Muskrat Creek Road. They step out, shovels in hand, ready to break through the last stubborn ice jam of the season. Something slides loose, soft, wrong. They stop. One steps forward. His boots crunch through the brittle crust as he leans over the edge of the drift. And there she is, partially buried where the bank had collapsed, skin pale against the snow. No clothes, no shoes, no jewelry, just the frozen stillness of what's left. They don't know her name yet. They don't know where she came from. But she's been out here for days, face down, like someone left her that way on purpose. So the investigation into Janelle's murder and that critical refrigerator failure really compromised it. And so it's an unsolved case. I mean, it's an unsolved case that is unbelievably cold. And, it's crazy. I know that I've alluded to this, or I haven't alluded to it. I've flat out said it multiple times. But it's remarkable to me. And maybe it's at the forefront of my mind because I'm right now writing Lisa Marie Kimmel's episodes, and there's so much information that it's going to be stretched over multiple episodes because there's just so much out there, so much of her story to tell that it's going to take up multiple episodes. And it really struck me because I said when we first kicked off Rocky Mountain Reckoning in the introductory episode, I said that Lisa Marie Kimmel's case really fostered my interest in true crime because it was just such a slap in the face to me at 11 to have a victim in Wyoming murdered. And it's crazy to me how, because that was huge. I remember it. And like we said, and we'll talk about in her episode, Unsolved Mysteries did an episode which was huge to actually be on Unsolved Mysteries. And then what strikes me is not just Janelle's case, Belinda Mae Grantham's we talked about, the Rollins Rodeo murders, but those ones were before I was born. But this cluster of women and around between 1980 and 1983, we're talking about Janelle Johnson this week. We talked about Belinda Mae Grantham. We have another one that we'll be talking about. I never heard shit about these.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Go.
Yeah. And you've got, and don't get me wrong, Lisa Marie Kimmel deserves 100% of the publicity that she got, that her story got, and her family, like her mom wrote a book about it and everything. And I think that helped a lot, but it's just remarkable. And I know that when we're talking about like the murdered and missing Indigenous women, and I know that minority groups feel like a lot of the times, like a white woman's case is showcased and a Black woman's case is not showcased and stuff. And while I agree that that does happen, I don't think it's a racial thing. I think that it's because we're talking about a white young woman in this case. Nobody's heard of this. I grew up in Wyoming. I never heard about this case. We talked about another white woman in Belinda Mae Grantham last week. I can't even find a picture of her. I don't even know what she looks like. And I don't know. I don't think that it's a race thing. It's just the majority of victims don't matter for whatever reason that is. I can't put my finger on it, but it seems like it's a fact. And then every once in a while, you get a case that catches the public's attention or whatever, like with Lisa Marie's case, it was the Little Miss license plate. I think that was why that is, I don't know. But as a kid, that was huge. Little Miss was everywhere.
Just so much easier to remember.
It is. And I think that it pulls at your heartstrings. And frankly, as sick and sad as it is to say, it makes a really good headline. It makes a really good intro into the nightly news section when you can put up a Little Miss license plate.
And people are like, what is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so why it is, I don't really know, but it's remarkably sad that, a case like Janelle's or Belinda Mae Grantham's or one of the, I don't know where we're at on our count right now this season, but what, like 10 or so women that we've talked about. And of those, really, Lisa Marie Kimmel is the only one that's gotten much publicity at all. Star Valley Jane Doe, Devil's Gate Jane Doe, Thousand Springs Jane Doe, Tammy Terrell, all the Rollins. I mean, the Rollins rodeo murders have gotten a little bit more. There's a few podcasts out there that have covered them, but still not a lot of attention. And it's just remarkable how, and it's not unique to Wyoming. It's not unique to the Great Basin. When you get to research in these cases, even though true crime is at its peak popularity right now, I would say.
Yeah.
And you turn on, I don't give a shit what streaming service you want to pick, Amazon Prime, Hulu, Netflix, a huge portion of their collection is true crime.
Yeah.
And they don't even begin to scratch the surface.
No, we'll be doing
cases.
this a while.
I mean, shit, as long as we're able to, I could do this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And by the time I drop dead at, I don't know, if I live to be 112, I won't even have gotten started.
This is true and sad.
It's incredible.
And
So-
you're going to try. I know it.
Oh, I'm going to damn sure try. But it's just so freaking crazy. And, we're in a very sparsely populated state. I mean, we've talked about it a bunch of times. I don't want to just keep bringing it up, but Wyoming's very sparsely populated.
Mhm.
We have a very low crime rate in comparison to other places with more
Getting
population.
bigger.
But it's very small. But even my point is, in Little Podunk, Wyoming, with 500,000 people in the entire freaking state, we have these cases that I've never heard of. I'm stumbling across these victims left, right, and in between
Yeah.
that nobody's ever talked about. What does that say for states like Texas, Alaska, California, New York? I mean, places with huge populations. We have this many in Wyoming. Imagine how many of these that are not getting talked about there are in these more populated states.
I've heard a lot goes on in Australia.
I think there's a lot in
Or
Australia.
in Australia. Well, Australia too, but I didn't mean that. I meant
You
Alaska.
meant Alaska. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, there's been a lot in Alaska, and a lot of that is just the remoteness of it,
Yeah.
And then you got the idiot baker dipshit up there that was a serial killer. Robert, I can't remember his last name. Dude's a total freaking
You
loser.
were good with idiot, I think.
But yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's amazing. And I don't really mean to get off on that, but I do think it's worth mentioning that there's so many victims out there that their stories will probably never be told. And then there's other ones that are told over and over and over again. And it's just, like the Chris Watts case, for instance. I mean, maybe we'll cover that someday. I don't know, but I don't know that we will, because you can't, of all those streaming platforms I just said, Amazon, Hulu, Netflix,
Yeah.
there's a Chris Watts special on every one of them.
Or two or four.
Yeah. And it's just nuts how some of these just get told over and over and over and over again. Lacey Peterson, that's another one. And don't get me wrong, I don't mean that those victims don't deserve to have their story told. Scream it from the rooftops. Absolutely. But it's just really sad that of all of those really popular, for lack of a better term, cases, there's a few tens of thousands for each one of those. There's, 50,000 other no name, nobody cares about cases out there. It's just remarkable, and it's sad, and it really freaking sucks. And then when you get to cases, of course, Janelle's is this way, but when you're talking about cases like our Jane Doe's and everything, a lot of these cases, you have the family that is just driving it and just keeping it in the spotlight and making sure that it's always in the headlines. But when we don't even know who their family is,
True.
there's nobody.
That sucks.
It's really sad. With Janelle's case, the sad reality of it is there's virtually no evidence. After losing that semen sample,
Yeah.
there's no evidence. And the bite mark could potentially be evidence if we were able to find a suspect that we could maybe compare it to. Maybe they could make something out of it. But unlike DNA and unlike fingerprints, there isn't a bite mark registry that they can, submit it to.
There probably should be now.
There probably should be all kinds of registries, but there isn't. So unless somebody is arrested and suspected, and the sad part of it is that's very unlikely in this case.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're talking 1983, almost 50 years ago.
Ew.
Yeah, it is.
No.
So the case does remain an open case, but there's nobody that's really working it. And as much as that I will jump all over law enforcement and drag them through the mud for their mistakes and stuff like that, I don't really see any in this case. When I first read about the refrigerator thing, my first instinct was like, you dipshits.
Uh-huh.
But really, it was just more frustration than anger towards them, because I don't really think it was their fault, like I said. And I've said this before, I said it in one of our previous episodes not too long ago, that, it doesn't necessarily mean that the department doesn't care about these cold cases if they're not working them. What it really comes down to is, what are they going to do? There's no witnesses to talk to. This one is extremely hard, at least in some of these cold cases. When the cold case unit or whatever pulls the case file down and they start looking and there's a list of witnesses that were interviewed, at least they can go back and talk to those witnesses and see if they remember anything else. There's nothing in Janelle's case. Sad part is she was last seen in a truck stop in Sinclair. So
yeah,
anybody that could have potentially been a witness to that probably got in their truck and finished their trip to California, or
forgot about it.
Well, they probably didn't even know.
Yeah.
They probably didn't even know that the girl they saw at the truck stop ended up dead. They just saw a girl at a truck stop and then said hi or whatever, filled their truck up, got back on the interstate and continued on their way. And they never even knew that she ever ended up missing. So we have no witnesses that we can go back to. And we know that the biggest thing that breaks cold cases in this day and age is DNA.
Mm-hmm.
It's gone. We don't have it. So the sad reality is I just don't have a lot of hope that this case is
not good.
Sad.
Not at all.
There's a stretch of land between Shoshoni and Manita where the roads narrow. The neighbors disappear. And the sky feels just a little too big. Out here, the rules bend. Time slows. People mind their own business, or else. This is isolation by design, and it's where some men thrive. Behind the wheel of a dented old truck sits a man who knows these roads too well. He's used them to hunt, to hide, and to vanish. His property is cluttered with rusted cars, scattered debris, and secrets buried deeper than the foundations. His name comes up again and again, not because he's confessed, not because the police ever nailed it for it, but because everything about him fits. Because Dale Wayne Eaton isn't just a name in a file. He's a living, breathing reminder that Wyoming had its own brand of evil. And if you're asking who had the access, the depravity, the time, and the isolation to do what was done to Janelle Johnson, you do not have to look far. So, yeah, we got to talk about this ship raid yet again. And I'm sure it just feels like I just nailed him for every freaking murder in the state of Wyoming.
He's just disgusting enough, though.
Yeah, it is. And, to be fair, like in some of the other episodes, especially like the Rollins Rodeo murders and stuff, Dale Wayne Eaton could have definitely been a suspect, but I think there's one that fits better. in Royal Russell Long.
Mm.
And so even as bad as I despise Dale Wayne Eaton, the fact of the matter is Long is a better fit for those. But Janelle's is a totally different story. One of the big things that connects, in my mind, connects Janelle Johnson to Dale Wayne Eaton is location. When you're talking about picking up a hitchhiker in Sinclair, Wyoming, and her body being found in Shoshoni, Wyoming, you really almost have to eliminate truckers from that equation, because unless they're on a dedicated route that they're running to Riverton, Shoshoni, Wyoming is not on a trucking route to anywhere.
Yeah.
It's considerably off the interstate. The nearest interstate to Shoshoni is in Casper, over 100 miles away. So it doesn't fit for it to be a truck, unless, like I said, it's like a dedicated route. Maybe they're running groceries from Denver to Riverton or something like that.
There's a Walmart in Riverton.
Well, not in 83 there was.
Damn it.
But it's not on like a major trucking thoroughfare like I-80 or I-25.
Yeah.
So it just makes it less likely that it's going to be a trucker. But let's go through some suspects that do fit. And we already know one of them is going to be
Dale Wayne Eaton.
Wyoming's largest asshat, Dale Wayne Eaton. But
can we make him like a plaque and just send it to him? Wyoming's largest ass.
Yeah. He's too retarded to know, I think, at this point, which sounds mean. And I'm hoping it does, because I'm being mean. My point is to be mean. So yeah, I don't want to hear I'm being mean to Dale Wayne Eaton, because I'm being mean to Dale Wayne.
He intends to be mean.
But let's start with Larry Dwayne Hall. We talked about this asshat when we did the serial killer series.
He sounds familiar.
So this piece of shit was born December 11th, 1962. He's an American kidnapper, rapist, and suspected serial killer. Traveled the Midwest for historical reenactments, targeting young women. He was convicted of kidnapping Jessica Lynn Roach in 1993 in Illinois. He's suspected in as many as 50 murders from the early 1980s. He was active during this period of time. He is my number one suspect for the next victim that we'll be talking about, that being Naomi Lee Kidder, who hers was 82. So we're kind of doing a little bouncy around thing, but
sorry. That was a tad funnier than it should have been.
But I mean, I think that he probably killed Naomi Kidder. His MO is strangulation, sexual assault, which completely aligns with Janelle's case. He did operate in Wyoming near I-80, but also across the state. But there's no direct forensic there's no evidence that links him to Janelle's death. And the likelihood, I would say, is moderate. He was in Wyoming. He has a similar MO, but it's hard to say because there's nothing that links him to her or to Shoshoni, which to me, in looking at Janelle's case, is a big one, because Shoshoni's nowhere. And that's not a blow to Shoshoni, but we're talking about a place that at its peak was 800 and some people.
Yeah.
It's tiny. It's not a place that a lot of people know. I mean, I've lived in Wyoming my whole life. I don't know any areas in Shoshoni other than where you fish.
The fork in the road and where you fish, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great reservoir for fishing. Boyden is, awesome fishing.
Yeah.
But other than that, Shoshoni is literally, like you said, it's a fork in the road. So I don't know any of these areas. So it almost, to me, points to somebody that's familiar with Shoshoni and the area around Shoshoni. And there's nothing to make me think that this dipshit is. The next suspect is Royal Russell Long. We talked about him with the Rollins Rodeo murders and everything.
Yeah.
I just don't think he's a good fit for this one. He could be, because, we know that he did pick up young hitchhikers and murder them. but it doesn't really fit. Almost all of his victims are somehow tied into, with the exception of Sharon Baldeagle, the 12-year-old girl that he picked up hitchhiking out of Casper, are tied to like carnivals and rodeos and stuff like that. And again, it's Shoshoni. So we know that this piece of shit was a truck driver and a carny, neither of which are going to take him to Shoshoni. So all of these are possibles. That's why I included them. But I just don't think he's terribly likely for those reasons.
Okay.
And then we have my favorite asshat, Wayne Eaton. This piece of shit was born in 1945. We know that he's a murderer. He was convicted of Lisa Marie Kimmel's murder in 1998. So not too long after this, we're talking 5 years. And as you know, if you've been listening to this series, he's a prime suspect in the Great Basin murders, but not just by me. He is a prime suspect in the Great Basin murders for anybody that has done any research into the Great Basin murders. I mean, if you just go look out there and look up Great Basin serial killer, he's going to be at the top of the list on every one of those lists out there. So it's not just me that thinks this guy's a royal piece of shit. And we'll be talking about him when we do Lisa's case a lot more. But, you know, the DEA agent that was involved in Lisa Marie Kimmel's case was 100% convinced that Wayne Eaton was a serial killer and had many more victims out there that we don't know.
I think you are too.
Oh, I'm 100%.
Yeah.
I have no doubt, zero doubt. But what really ties him in for me to Janelle's case is exactly what I said pushes Hall and Long out a little bit for me, and that is Shoshoni. Because Wayne Eaton lived in Manita, and if you're not from Wyoming, these town names don't mean shit. But I think, and I'm just going off of memory, I should have looked it up, but I want to say that Manita is about 20 miles from Shoshoni, and there's absolutely nothing. There's nothing in Manita. There's not much more in Shoshoni, but Wayne Eaton worked as an oil field welder. So he would have been very familiar with roads that service oil fields. He probably would have taken this road multiple times during his work in the oil fields. And just living in Manita, I realized that there's like 20 miles in between Manita and Shoshoni, but there's nothing else there. And so living in Manita definitely would mean that he would be familiar with the Shoshoni area. He probably went to Shoshoni on a regular basis. Shoshoni would have been his nearest place to get gas because there's no gas in Shoshoni. I don't know if Highland would have been selling gas in 83 or not. There's a little gas station in Highland that has kind of gone in and out. Sometimes they've, over the course of years, sometimes it's been open and is gas. Other times it hasn't been. So during this period, I don't know if Highland would have been an option, but to run to a store, although Shoshoni has no grocery store or anything, they do have, like a convenience store.
Yeah, it's a larger one.
It is now. Back then, it was a wee market, which I don't know if you remember the wee markets, but the one in Shoshoni was a lot smaller than it is now and was a little wee market. But it was a convenience store. It was a convenience store in the early 80s. It would have been a place where you could have ran up and got, some chips or, whatever from a convenience store. It would have been a place where you could get oil for your vehicle. You could have fueled up with gas. So it would have been a location that Wayne Eaton would have gone to frequently. And it also would have been the only bar around him. Mm-hmm. There's nothing in Manita. There's nothing in Highland.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it.
Trying to find what?
Manita and Casper. But my fingers typing on this thing are too big and I have to keep going back.
Oh, I get it. I'm pretty sure it's about 20 miles from Manita to Shoshoni. My point is it would have put him in Shoshoni on a regular basis. I have no doubt about that whatsoever. I think it would have even been closer for him to go to Riverton to do grocery shopping and stuff than it would have been to go to Casper, although it would have been pretty damn close to halfway. I think it still would have been faster and closer to go to Riverton. So he was probably driving through Shoshoni on a very regular basis. And that coupled with what we know he does, and that is rape and kill his victim.
22 miles.
22 miles from Anita to Shoshoni.
Yeah, it's like throwing a rock.
Yeah. And so he would have been in Shoshoni frequently. It matches his MO. So for me, with Janelle's murder, it's not just because he's an absolute shithead that I despise with every fiber of my being.
I couldn't tell.
There's also a reasoning behind it because he fits. And then Robert Ben Rhoades, I'm not really going to spend much time on him. He doesn't really fit because he really wasn't working in this area at that time. And, you can go through the whole list. I did the whole serial killers series for a very specific reason. And that was because I wanted to discuss all the shitheads that were working in the Great Basin area during this time. And so, you could grab any one of them and say they're a potential suspect, and they are, but like Ted Bundy, for instance, could have he? Actually, I don't think he could have because I think he was in prison by 83. So that was a bad pick. But, Robert Ben Rhoades, could he have been? Well, he could have been, but it doesn't really fit. It doesn't really fit his MO. Because he liked to keep them for extended periods in his torture chamber sleeper cab. And then he just basically pulled over and kicked them out of the truck. Clark Berry Baldwin, same way. Just kind of kicked them out of the truck. Now, saying that they don't match, but somehow Wayne Eaton does because his one victim we know he killed and then threw in the river, I got to apply the same thing to him. Janelle Johnson is not a perfect fit to the way that he left Lisa Marie Kimmel.
Yeah.
If we believe that Lisa Marie Kimmel was his only victim, then maybe he's not a good match for Janelle. However,
I can't. He's the only. She's the only victim.
If you believe that he's a very likely suspect for the Elko County Jane Does that we talked about earlier in this series, then they were left in very similar ways to Janelle Johnson. I mean, we know that she was buried. We know that she was under the dirt.
Mm-hmm.
Whether she was actually buried or whether she was covered up from a previous rainstorm or something, I don't know. I know that she was partially buried, but that can happen naturally or they can be actively buried. So I don't know.
And I know that we don't know, but can't you tell if they're actively buried versus?
Well, but potentially they could have been able to. But the problem with Janelle's case is the water washed away enough that it exposed her. So it's probably very difficult to tell anything about the way that she was buried by that. So good and bad. One, it allowed her to be found. Two, it almost certainly washed away evidence.
Definitely, yeah.
So, but my point is, it could be Wayne Eaton. Maybe it's not, but he is by far the closest fit of all of the suspects that we've talked about for Janelle's case. So, if we're looking at a profile of a killer, it's going to be somebody that is opportunistic, that sees a young girl on the side of the road hitchhiking or at a truck stop, whatever you want to, whatever. We don't really know where she was picked up. We just know where she was last seen. Cause of death was rape and strangulation. We know that Wayne Eaton definitely rapes his victims. Lisa Marie Kimmel was not strangled. She was beaten and stabbed, but not strangled. So as far as that goes, that would be a better fit for Hall because he did strangle his victims. And then the disposal of the body, the difficult part, which Janelle's, like I said, is the extended period of time between it wasn't a long time. It's not like it was one of our Jane Does, but
Yeah.
she wasn't found immediately, and so it does make it a little bit more difficult. We've lost our DNA, so that's not possible. What we can say is this offender would have likely been between the ages of 20 and 40 in 1983, which would fit Wayne Eaton. And it really would fit all of those that I listed, although I'm throwing Robert Ben Rhoades out. I'm not even considering him because it doesn't fit. I don't think it's likely at all for him. But as far as Hall and Long go, they all fit this. So does Eaton. They would have been Caucasian, again, fits. And transient or a truck driver, somebody that was traveling. We know that all three of them fit that profile. Wayne Eaton traveled all over the state for all different reasons.
Yeah.
Larry Hall traveled all over because he wanted to play soldier and dress up and pretend like he meant something. And
Yeah.
didn't. And Russell Royal Long was a truck driver and a carny. So he was traveling all over. So they all fit in that. The one where again, I'm just repeating myself, but the one that really sets Wayne Eaton apart in my mind is this particular predator almost had to have had local knowledge. They were familiar with Fremont County's remote areas, like Muskrat Creek Road. It definitely does indicate somebody that is familiar with the area. It's likely a blue-collar worker, and it's way less likely to be a long-haul trucker because it's so far off of any trucking routes. He's an opportunistic killer. He's violent and sexually motivated.
Mm-hmm.
He's moderately organized. And I say that because of the high likelihood of a potential grave digging, which would suggest some sort of planning, definitely knowledge of an area.
Yeah.
If it wasn't planned ahead of time, he would have almost certainly needed to know that this was a route that nobody really traveled, and he didn't need to worry too much about somebody stumbling upon him. An offender like this would probably have previous sexual assaults, whether he'd been caught for them or not, likely theft, minor violent crimes, possibly abusive in relationships. And, this definitely ties into our greater Great Basin murders in all of those different areas. An offender like this would likely exhibit antisocial personality disorder. They'd be impulsive, have an absolute lack of empathy, and probably would have thrill-seeking behavior. Likely a sexual sadist. And I say that because of the bite marks and the prolonged sexual assault, which does align with both Eaton and Rhoades, but Rhoades is out because he doesn't fit anywhere else. This is about power and control. The strangulation and the rape reflect dominance, which is a common motivation for sexually driven offenders. And it's a fantasy fulfillment. The bite marks indicate some ritualistic or some fetish part of this. We know that there would have been some sort of a trigger likely in this person's life. We know that I would have to look to be absolutely sure, but I'm pretty positive it was 1982. Wayne Eaton called the police and asked to be locked away because he was afraid he was going to hurt somebody. So this is also a period of time where he has all kinds of turmoil in his marriage. They're getting divorced for like the 757th time because these two divorced and remarried and got together and fell apart.
They have a punch card?
Oh, they freaking needed to. And so, but we know that in the early 80s, right around 1982, Wayne Eaton is significantly stressed to the point that he's afraid he's going to hurt somebody. That's a big indication for me. So I would say that with this particular killing, Wayne Eaton is a very high likelihood fit for the murder of Janelle Johnson. There's no evidence that ties him, but for all the reasons I just went through, he's by far the most likely of the suspects that I named. Now, is there a possibility of it being like a one-off killer? You can never say no to a question like that.
Shoshoni?
It's just, it doesn't fit with that. It doesn't fit with, for her to be taken out where she was taken and to be buried and disposed of the way that she was really indicates somebody with experience, somebody that has done this before. This isn't somebody that's panicking and wanting to get rid of this body and get the hell out of the area as fast as possible, like you would expect if it was their first kill. You would expect them to maybe pull off the road, throw her into the borrow ditch or somewhere where she isn't going to be quickly seen, and then get the hell out of there. This is somebody that is a lot more comfortable having a dead body in their presence for a long enough period of time to potentially be digging a grave. So this isn't a first-time killer. I just think it's very unlikely that this is a first-time killer. So then that means that there's another serial killer living in the Shoshoni area, which I've seen no indication. I mean, is it possible? Well, it's possible because there are some other unsolveds around there, but for a lot of different reasons, which we'll talk about when we get to their episodes, Wayne Eaton mysteriously fits really well. And it's not just because John thinks he's a piece of shit and hates
He's
him.
everywhere, though.
It's because
But it's because we're
his brother testifies that he was in these areas during the time that these women disappeared. We know for a fact that he was there. So, you know, it's no different than what they do with any of these serial killers. When we did the serial killer episode, when we talked about all of their suspected victims, they're suspected because they went missing and either were murdered or went missing in a very similar method to the way that this serial killer or that serial killer killed the rest of their victims. So it's a logical conclusion to say, gosh, I wonder if they killed this one too. And then just running quickly through them, I've pretty much covered all this. So Robert Ben Rhoades is not a good fit at all for this. And that's not because he's not a absolutely worthless, evil piece of shit. It's just that he doesn't fit because he wasn't in the area. And he really was a trucking killer. I mean, his method of killing was in the back of his truck. He's not going to be in Shoshoni, Wyoming. Larry Wayne Hall, he's a moderate fit, but again, Shoshoni doesn't fit. And I'm going to say the same thing for Long. It doesn't fit to Shoshoni. If we're talking about a victim that was found in Casper, Robert Ben Rhoades would still be a reach for me just because he isn't known to have worked in Wyoming off of the I-80 corridor. Could have he? Yeah, but he's not known to. I-80 was the major trucking corridor. He definitely would have been across I-80 multiple different times, but his primary trucking routes were down in Texas up into Utah. And so he's not a prime suspect for Wyoming cases. Then you have, and I didn't bring this piece of shit up earlier because he just doesn't fit. And that's Clark Perry Baldwin, the son of a bitch that just died. Thank God. But
bad timing, though.
Very bad timing. But he doesn't die, or he doesn't die. He dies. He doesn't fit because it's a little bit early for him. And again, we know that he did travel through Wyoming. But again, he's a trucker and he sticks primarily to major trucking routes, interstates. That's where his victims are found, is on or right off of interstates. So he's not a very good fit for that. So, you know, when you go through all of them, I mean, I hate them all equally. I think they're all pieces of absolute garbage and a waste of oxygen for all of us. But when I really look at this, we're probably never going to know. So speculation is all we have. It's really sad. I mean, you talk about these cases and you talk about them with a hope that one day we're going to solve them. And with a lot of these cold cases, I think that that's a possibility that, we're going to be able to one day, Tammy Terrell, the DNA that we have from Tammy Terrell's case, one day technology is going to come to a place where we can process that and we're going to know the piece of shit's probably going to be long dead by then, but one day we will know who killed her. You could say the same thing for the 2 Wyoming Jane Does that Clark Perry Baldwin killed. We now know that he did that because DNA technology tells us. And then in other cases, sometimes a witness will come forward and say, I saw this or that breaks the case wide open. Hopefully we're seeing that in Brianna Maitland's case with these new witnesses that have just come forward and said that they saw the silver or gray Honda. In Janelle's case, I can't think of anything that's going to break this case. We don't have DNA. It's gone.
So sad.
We don't have witnesses. And the idea, the witnesses coming forward in Brianna's case over 20 years after the fact is remarkable. Almost never happens. The idea that a witness is going to come forward in Janelle's case, like 44 years after the fact.
Yeah.
Is it possible? Anything's possible, but boy, it's not very likely. It is sad as hell, but the reality is we're probably never going to know for sure. So I'm comfortable saying, in my mind, I believe Wayne Eaton is Janelle's killer because it means shit. It means nothing. It means John has an opinion. That's it. I'm not screwing up any investigation. I don't think there's any investigation occurring in this case. I'm not throwing a wrench in, nothing else. I'm just giving my freaking worthless opinion. I think Wayne Eaton is the killer. I think he's the most likely fit, and it means nothing. And he won't face justice for it in this world. If you believe that there's justice waiting for this sack of shit in the next, he'll definitely face that justice.
Yeah, no doubt.
Let's put the pieces back on the table. 23-year-old woman with plans, grit, and a damn good reason to believe that her life was about to change gets dumped, naked, brutalized, and buried like garbage on a road that even locals barely drive. Like we've talked about, there's no shortage of monsters to consider. Wayne Eaton, piece of shit number 1. He gets the largest share of this pie. He lived just 20 miles away in Manita at the time. His known crimes, same kind of isolated roads, same type of victim, same level of sadism. He didn't just kill Lisa Marie Kimmel, he tortured her. And the way that Janelle was left, yeah, it fits. Robert Ben Rhoades, the truck stop killer, I've already said he's not likely. He prowled I-80, picked up women at rest stops, and truck depots exactly where Janelle was last seen. The timing and the methods line up, but there's no direct link, and the Shoshoni location just puts him out. The unknown local offender, somebody from Shoshoni or Riverton, someone who didn't need a reason to be there, who knew how to disappear down an oil field road. We talked about that. Not very likely. A one-off killer, I think that's extraordinarily unlikely.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of them, I mean, we've pretty well covered it. I'm not going to continue to beat a dead horse, but they just don't fit. So some of those are long shots. Some of them are bad fits in general, but they're all on the board because the Great Basin in that area was a damn breeding ground for this kind of evil. But here's the part that really pisses me off. And it is,
until now,
there was DNA. It was collected. It was preserved. It was bagged and tagged. And then it sat in a police evidence refrigerator that malfunctioned. So Because a refrigerator failed, we'll probably never know.
Oh,
So now, over 40 years later, we're sitting on a crime scene with no viable biological evidence left. No backup, no do-over, just a case file with bloodstains, bite marks, and the smell of missed chances. The killer? He might be dead. Or he might be nearly dead, sitting in a Wyoming prison right now. Or he might still be out driving those roads, waving at the sheriff and buying coffee at the same damn truck stop. We don't know, because whoever killed Janelle Johnson didn't just take her life. He outlived the evidence. Janelle Lee Johnson, born February 16th, 1960, died in February of 1983. She was born in Glasgow, Montana, a small town girl with big dreams and a work ethic that didn't quit. Janelle Lee Johnson wasn't famous. She wasn't rich. She didn't come from privilege. But what she had was hope and drive and heart. By the time she turned 23, she was living in Riverton, Wyoming, working at Valley View Lanes and picking up shifts at a local nursing home, saving money, building her life one day at a time. She had goals, concrete ones. She wanted more than what she'd been handed, and she wasn't afraid to chase it. She made the trip to Denver on her own, not because it was easy, not because she was careless, but because she had ambition, because she believed that maybe, just maybe, she could do something different with her life, be someone different. She was last heard from after calling her roommate and workplace to check in. She had every intention of making it back. She had people waiting for her. She had a life that she was returning to. But someone else had other plans. What was done to her, what was taken from her, goes beyond the physical brutality. It was a theft of a future, a silencing of a voice, a destruction of potential. And for what? Who knows? There is no justice yet. No arrests, no charges, just cold case reports, failed evidence storage, and the cruel passage of time. But through it all, Janelle's name remains. She was a daughter, a friend, a co-worker, a dreamer, and she is not forgotten. She rests now in Highland Cemetery in Glasgow, Montana, the place where her story began and where her memory endures. One tribute left in her honor reads, quote, "In memory of our precious daughter and sister, our hearts still ache in sadness and secret tears still flow," end quote. She was loved. She still is. And as long as we speak her name, as long as we keep demanding answers, as long as we keep telling her story, she lives on. This is for Janelle and for every young woman whose dreams ended on a road no one was supposed to travel. Another name, another woman stolen from her life, her family, and her future. And another case buried under decades of silence, lost evidence, and apathy. Janelle Johnson deserved better. Better than hitchhiking in a world that failed to protect her. Better than being discarded on a desolate oil-filled road. Better than being a cold case in a state where justice is too often outpaced by time.
if you knew Janelle, if you remember that night in Sinclair or anything about her route from Denver back to Riverton, we are still listening. Someone knows something, and it's never too late to come forward.
You can contact the National Organization of Parents of Murdered Children at 513-721-5683 or email them at natlpomc@pomc.org. Be sure to reference her case. And if you want to support the work we're doing to uncover the truth, if you want to submit a tip that you want to remain anonymous, if you don't feel like you can call, send us an email at info@darkdialogue.com.
We're also on Patreon, Coffee, and Substack. Every bit of support helps us keep the pressure on and the spotlight burning.
And if you'd like to get directly involved in casework, research, or victim advocacy, check out the Adopt a Victim program, or for on-the-ground searches, the Dark Dialogue Collective. All the information can be found at darkdialogue.com. We're building a community dedicated to action.
Don't forget to rate, review, and share this episode, because the more people who hear these stories, the harder they are to ignore.
We'll be back next time with another name, another place, and another fight for the truth. Until then, make the guilty face the reckoning.